hasn't sat in your lap in months, and even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff, even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover guitar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Dear John, I was hoping it wouldn't come to this, but you've left me no choice. I'm leaving. Uncontrolled high blood pressure is really serious, and lately you seem to really not care. I've been there for you since day one, and I know you think I'm going to keep ticking. But no, my friend, I can quit whenever I want. Why can't we get back to the good times, when we were more active and ate more healthy foods, and you checked on me every once in a while? Is that too much to ask? I don't want to leave, but unless you stop ignoring me, what else am I supposed to do? Remember, when I quit, you quit. Sincerely, your heart.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you. Doing the minimum to control your high blood pressure isn't doing enough. High blood pressure can lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get your blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late. Find out how at heart.org/blood pressure. Check, change, control. A message from the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Little roller up along first. Behind it. See you, Pittsburgh. Can't wait. All the baby is out of the field. He's going to go in the end zone. Looking, throwing in the end zone.
You're tuned into Game On with Josh Silverberg and Eric Bowe. Talking all things sports. It's
Game on! Yeah, game on!
Game On, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Friday to all of you. You are listening and watching us on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network every single Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is Game On. I'm your host, Josh Silverberg. Of course, my co-host, Eric Bowe. How are you, sir?
I don't
You don't know how you did it? I don't know. I still got to
top that introduction.
I mean,
and the timing of everything. We'll go through that later, ladies and gentlemen. But
we'll keep talking. I got to put everything live.
Okay, so here's the situation. I'm still baffled by all of this.
That I just got,
Josh,
that I got done with everything.
You're gonna start everything before me. I'm gonna be late. Oh man, we're freaking out. We're worrying.
Well,
we got to start it. Get everything going. Josh walks in, goes to the bathroom, comes back, sits down just as the intro ends.
Even Speedy,
I don't know how he can make that timing any more impeccable.
And of course, Speedy is here as well. Thank you so much, sir. Speedy, how are you, man?
Wow.
Was that impressive, or are you not impressed with that, Speedy?
You have to be impressed, indeed.
Thank you.
Like, no time left whatsoever.
And it's so funny, no script, no nothing. We had a meeting on the phone, walk right in. It's like I've been here for how long? Like 10, 15 minutes, and I do that intro. It's pretty
10,
good.
15 seconds, really.
Yeah, well, we have at 6:15, ladies and gentlemen, former NHL official and Speedy. I believe he's also the host of his podcast. I just want to make sure I get his podcast correct.
It is the Snipes and Stripes
and Stripes podcast. Tim Peel will be joining us at 6:15. He does the show with Jerome Nick, former NHL official. A lot to discuss between what he's thinking of the players, but also his career and his fascinating career. He will join us at 6:15. The New York Mets, the dumpster fire that they are. We will get into that, but also why I think somebody at this network was a little too harsh on them last night. So we'll talk about that.
Tell me why.
Tell me why ain't no. Sorry. That you led me into that. I'm
Can we
sorry.
mute him? Is there a way to mute him, please?
I didn't have to come on time. You could have started the show sooner.
I would have saved us from the singing. We should have.
So there's a lot, of course, to get into. You can check us out on worldwidesportsradio.com, Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, YouTube, Periscope, Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Pinterest. Not Pinterest. What am I saying? Pinterest. Yeah, it's a new one. Yeah, no.
Yet?
I don't know.
We're working on it.
Alexa Smart Speakers. Are we going to YouTube officially, Speedy? Are we going to YouTube as well, or is it just?
Well, no, your feed is going to stay the same on the network YouTube. You have to create your own page if that's the case.
Okay, so basically, we're still staying on Facebook.
We are still staying on Facebook for now.
No, but I'm saying, like, is this show staying on Facebook?
I don't see why not. Errol only wanted it for our show.
Oh, excuse me, he only wanted it for his show.
Almost breaking news there.
He only
But
wanted
it
it
was
for
a
his show.
burger.
You know, we wanted it for our show. Anyway, we'll get into that. And so,
Can you repeat that last part?
only his show.
Maybe not.
By the way, there's now a new rivalry here at the network.
Whoa. What do we got?
I started on the show last night. I think it involves Fish and Jeff. Yeah, because when Fish said what he said, I literally went, "Oh no!" Fish went down that rabbit hole, man. I said it because Speedy, you know this for years, but Jeff, it's a battle you're not going to win. And he went down there, and I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing? Just leave him alone. Let him say what he says." Cares.
I mean, yeah, Fish has been very critical of him lately. But he hasn't reached the Nathan level yet, though.
Well, but the NBA Finals is set as well.
Wait a minute.
We don't play till next week.
They are?
Exactly. We don't
And
play.
wait, do we have takes from was it a week or so ago when someone picked Dallas over Minnesota?
Yeah,
Who did that
I think
again?
we picked Minnesota, right, Speedy? Yeah, we got that one wrong because they left it all. They left it all out on the line.
And didn't someone pick Dallas?
They left it all out.
Weird.
They left it all out on the line.
Didn't someone say because Luca and Kyrie are going to be too much for just Ant-Man?
They left it all on the line against
Weird.
Denver.
Weird.
So now the question is: was Denver just fraudulent this year? Were they frauds this year?
Dallas?
No, Denver.
Denver frauds?
Yeah, were they frauds this year?
Yeah,
Because the team they lost to they got crushed in the conference finals. So were they frauds?
tired me.
Fraudulent, as they say.
You know what? How much stigma and everything else, or how much recency bias could there have been with Denver?
It's
too,
going to be
though?
fascinating this finals though with the whole Kyrie Boston thing.
Just saying, could be
The
that.
Kyrie Irving and Kristaps Porzingis revenge series.
Oh my God, I forgot.
Yes. And you know who the happiest player has to be from both of those teams? Grant Williams.
Ah.
Stoked.
Oh, God. He's going to have to
I
sage.
feel awful.
He's gonna
I
have to
feel
stay-
awful.
I think
for him.
Grant's going to have to sage his house. That's what I
Ah.
think he's going to have to do. So there's a lot to get into. Again, Tim's going to join us at 6:15, talk a little NHL playoff time. And we'll get to the NBA finals a little bit later. Everybody's been asking me, what are you going to talk about on the show tonight? What do you want to start with? Your New York Rangers, they're in trouble. They're in trouble, man. How do you go about this? And then and then tomorrow I'm going to Monster Jam and it's game 6 tomorrow. And I'm like, how are you gonna watch it? Thank God for the iPad and the phone. It's gonna be a mixed bag, at 8 o'clock. It's gonna be tight. It's gonna be tight. But everybody's been asking me, how you feeling? What are your thoughts on this series? What's your thoughts on this Ranger core?
How are you feeling, Joshua?
I really wish Speedy would stick up more for his teams.
Okay, that took a 180. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
But go ahead, please go on.
I mean, Speedy
I'm intrigued.
Speedy sits there and just lets people just step all over him with his teams.
So this
Am
went-
I right or wrong?
This went
Man
from,
up and admit it.
Hold on.
Admit it, you coward.
It goes from the Rangers to Speedy.
Speedy, admit it.
Admit what?
That you don't stick up for your teams, you
We'll
coward.
do so when necessary.
You don't. The only time I've ever seen you stick up was when there was a rivalry between Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey.
Which neither of them played for my team.
No, they didn't, which is sad. What does that tell you?
But the Giants drafted Eli Apple instead, which is sad.
Oh, well, that took a real
They
one.
could have had Xavier Howard. It was the
No.
same draft.
I'm kidding, first off. But be it as it may, Caleb is watching. My mom is watching with us. She's watching Caleb. Caleb, of course, my son saying hi. We're talking about the New York Rangers and where they're at and what's going on, and it's a cluster. You know what? Because we look at the last 2 years. Speedy knows this as a Ranger fan. You're up 2-0 on Tampa 2 years ago. Jacob Trouba does a cross-check penalty for no reason. They're winning the game. And after that penalty, the Rangers lost the next 4 games. Last year, they're up 2 games on the Devils. And I actually picked the Devils to win that series. Speedy remembers.
So do I, but okay.
You weren't in the show yet.
Still remember.
Speedy got both of them wrong. He got the Knicks wrong and the Rangers wrong. He picked the Knicks to lose and the Rangers to win. He picked the Knicks to lose to Cleveland. I picked the Knicks to beat Cleveland. But be it as it may, here's the thing, and it's weird. And everybody says I'm very negative on my teams. You say it. Eric says it.
I say you're an optimist with it.
With my teams?
With it,
with which teams?
You're an optimist.
With which Speedy? Am I an optimist? I don't think so. I think I throw dirt on them, and I literally will just
hear me out.
I torch them.
You're an optimist. You see the bigger picture. It's not just one game to the next. You see the bigger picture with your teams. You identify the flaws, and then you realize, okay, this is how it could get fixed.
Oh yeah. But it doesn't get fixed. It gets worse.
Well, the hope that it does get fixed. So
I mean, it's literally like I just pour gasoline on and it just turns into a fire. That's what happens, and I think this is what's happening in this series right now, and you're seeing it. And for the New York Rangers, where they're at right now, and everything of that nature, my dad called me a quitter, so that's nice. First off, I'm going to say what I'm going to say.
If the shoe fits,
I think the Rangers are winning tomorrow night. And we'll talk to Tim at 6:15 about it. Game 7, anything can happen. Now, I hate it that it's Monday night at 8 o'clock. You can't just make it at 7 because puck drop is until 8:20 at this. It's ridiculous. So, to me, this team has done so much this year. This is the best team they've had in years. I would say, I think this team is better than the team that went to the Cup in 2014. Would you say, Speedy? I think it's better.
Yeah, that team was an underdog.
And then in 2015, too, that team as well. I think they're better than that 2015 team. I do.
Yep.
And then it becomes, well, Florida, the Panthers. The Panthers right now are a better team. But it's not. Here's the bothersome part. It's not even Tkachuk and Barkov that are scoring. It's, obviously you have Reinhart. You have Carter Verhaeghe, who has absolutely slaughtered the Rangers this series. But then you have Gustav Forsling yesterday getting by Adam Fox for a backhander. And then that goes in. It's the little Nico Mikko all of a sudden looks like Victor Hedman out there. I don't even understand.
Don't forget the game Tuesday night. Power play to start overtime.
Well, yeah. I mean, look,
that was huge,
and this is where
that's huge,
and
there.
We're gonna discuss with Tim this whole thing, and this goes into my point. Will the New York Rangers look differently next year? Because they're gonna pay Igor, and I'll go on record as saying this. I think Lafreniere is the next captain of this team. I think in the next 2 or 3 years, he will be the captain of the New York Rangers. Speedy, you agree with me on that one when I said that to you. I said the next 2 or 3 years, right? I said Lafreniere would be the captain of the New York Rangers.
Where does Trouba go?
And this is where it gets fascinating because Trouba is going to have, I believe, his 15-team no-trade clause kicks in. And everybody keeps saying, oh, they're not going to trade him. He's the captain. And I keep saying, guys, they traded Ryan Callahan and Ryan McDonough. They'll trade Jacob Trouba. They will trade Trouba because the truth of the matter is Braden Schneider and Keandre Miller are the new top pair on defense for this team. It's just what it is now and everything like that. So to me, I look at it as in the perspective of you have to be realistic with yourselves in what the New York Rangers are trying to do. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to play at the Florida Panthers level with the forechecking and all that stuff. You can't do it.
Mhm.
So the first couple of games, they're trying to be finesse with this team. You can't do that against Florida.
What worked against them? Think about it. What worked?
Lafreniere,
in
who,
the
by the way,
overtime games.
Lafreniere, who 110% needs more playing time. Number one. Number two, Lafreniere needs to be on the number one power play. I don't care what you do. That might mean you demote Kreider and you have Lafreniere be at the front of the net. You might have to do that. You might have to demote Fox because he's playing on one leg right now and make Gustafsson the guy on the power play one as a defenseman quarterback. Because Fox isn't giving you anything. He's on one leg.
You're losing a lot right there.
That's the killer.
But also too the dumb penalties and the boneheaded mistakes.
Well, it's about
how to be limited too, especially in the third period.
Well, that's the problem. For some particular reason, I don't understand. We watched the game yesterday. They were fantastic in the first period.
Mm-hmm.
They played great in the first half of the second period. Forsling scores the goal, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking, all right, it's 1-1 going into the intermission. And then the third period comes out, and it's like the sails just came off the Rangers.
Right.
And again, for what is that? Probably the third game in a row. The Panthers own the pace of play in the third period. And it just... And here's the problems. I think it's the way the team is set up right now. There's a couple of things. One, and listen, love Peter Laviolette, man. Great, one of the best coaches in the league. Matt Rempe cannot play tomorrow. He played 2 minutes, if I'm not correct, Speedy. I believe it was 2 minutes and 45 seconds yesterday. You're essentially playing shorthanded with 6 defensemen and 11 forwards. So you're double shifting guys who are now exhausted going into the third period. And I think once Rempe got benched, there was a play in the offensive zone. And then Rempe, instead of trying to go after the puck, he tried to do a big body check on the Panther player. And he completely whiffed, and they made an odd man 3-on-2 rush. And I think at that point, Laviolette was like, he can't play anymore. He's worried about the body. He's not worried about the puck. That's the problem.
How do you win hockey games? The puck has to go where?
In the net.
Do you get points for checking?
No. Oh. And listen, I understand what. There's no fighting in the playoffs. There's no fighting. And everybody's going to say, well, who are you going to put in? Johnny Brzezinski? Yes, because at least Brzezinski will check. He has speed, but he's not going to try to take himself out of the game. He's going to basically force the play with Goodrow and Cooley. That's what he's going to try to do. Even Wheeler didn't play that bad in game 4. And for those ever blaming him for that mistake in overtime, that's not on him. Now, you wish there was a quicker player that could stop the breakaway. But that was all Mika that caused that problem, that situation in itself. So to me, when I look at it I view it as this. The way the New York Rangers are set up, there's going to be some tough decisions in the offseason if they don't win tomorrow. They got to pay Igor and they got to pay Lafreniere.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to ask yourself
those are corner pieces.
If you're Chris Drury, you have to ask yourself the question, all right, this is 3 years in a row. This core has had a lead in a series and just basically fell on their face.
And what's the reason? Are they missing just that one more impactful guy? Is it the current?
I think it's the current core. I don't like what Mika said after game 4 with the turnover. Blake Wheeler went up to the media the next day and took full responsibility for that play. Had nothing to do with him.
Mm-hmm.
Mika just sat at the media and said, well, it was a tough play. Probably should have made a different decision on that, but it is what it is. What are you going to do? Move on to the next game. And I'm like, No, you have to sit there and you have to say, I made a boneheaded decision. I shouldn't have put Blake in that spot with 2 defensemen on top of him at the top of the blue line. It was a horrible job on my part. Never gonna happen again.
But
that's what you say.
The mental errors.
But that's the thing. Mika doesn't do that. Mika's not like, he doesn't have the voice, Mika. That's the problem. That's what annoys the crap out of me. He sits there, him and Panarin both, they just sit and they wallow.
And what does Trouba do as a captain?
Nothing. He sucks too. He does nothing. Why is he on the third pair with Gustafsson? He's slow. He can't defend. He's horrible on odd man. He's horrible on the rush. Can't defend at all. He doesn't know how to. He can't move the puck up the ice at all. You can't break out with him on the ice because he's too slow and he's horrible with the puck. So he can't do anything. That's the problem with Trouba. But the Panthers right now are just a better team than them. And it sucks because if they lose tomorrow, the season's a flop. It's a flop because you don't know if you're going to get back there again. And you have to ask yourself, if you're Chris Drury, is it the core? Like, if you're Chris Drury, you're going to sit there and you're going to say, gosh, should I have traded Brendan Ottman or Gabriel Perreault for Jake Gensel? Should I have done that move? Would that have been the perfect winger to go with Mika and Kreider? I don't think he should have made the move. I don't. But Drury will sit there and say, I probably should have made that move. But is it also the core? Is Mika, who hasn't scored, by the way, now in 15 straight games, hasn't scored a goal, who, by the way, this was not one of his best years this year, scoring-wise. Is Panarin a problem? Panarin's now has not scored in 8 straight games. When he had a record-setting, 49 goals this year? Is he a problem in the playoffs? Are these guys, like you're seeing...
Or even still, even if he's getting doubled or different defensive schemes on him, who's that next guy that's stepping up for the Rangers?
He's got a great line. He's got... the top guys that have been for the New York Rangers in this postseason, Alexei Lafreniere has now shown 2 of the last 3 years he's a playoff performer. Trocheck has been fantastic, Vinny Trocheck, and Barclay Goodrow has been great in the postseason. But the other problem too for the Rangers is they're not getting any scoring from their defensemen either. None. They're getting no scoring from their defensemen. And I think, again, the bothersome part is this. Like, you look at the game yesterday, other than the breakaway that Kreider scored on the shorty, they're not testing Bobrovsky very much. It's so easy for him. There's how many times in the middle of the ice on the offensive zone are the Rangers just letting Florida sit there and shoot the puck? Kachuk, right in the middle of the ice. Forsling, right there in the middle of the ice. Varhage, right there in the middle. Nobody's back checking.
No.
Nobody is back checking. That's the part that's driving me up the wall. Is why is this the problem? You know what I mean? And everything of that nature. I don't understand it. So,
and you know what? And why? I feel like the entire series has just been third period overtime, momentum. You know, it's like whoever had the momentum in the third seemed to have won in overtime so far.
By the way, breaking news: Mike Tyson, Jake Paul is now off due to the ulcer issue for Mike Tyson, who was literally in a wheelchair the other day.
But to be rescheduled, moving the date, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so. I don't know what is Frankie talking about. Speedy, something happened with George Lopez. I don't see anything. Tim's not on yet, right?
No, Tim said he needs about 10 minutes. He's in about 10 minutes.
Okay. Beautiful. So yeah, I mean, I think the Rangers will win tomorrow. I'm going to be an optimist about it.
Well, see,
I think this team, because here's the thing, this team to me has shown this year they can get through things. It just sucks because if they could have just You look back at the Carolina series, if they would have just won that game 4 and they tied it and they scored with about 2 minutes left in the game and that cost an extra 2 games.
Yep.
It's the same thing in game 4 against Florida. They literally had it overtime. We're going to steal another one. They would have been up 3-1. And then you also look at yesterday with the Gustafson penalty. He's sticking up for his goalie. I'm all for that. I think Florida has done a million times worse this series. But yet, I think Gustafson went over the top. You could check the guy. I'm fine with that. Just get him out of the crease. But you don't have to stand on top of him and do that because that's a 5-on-3 for 1:40 seconds. And they had all the momentum. They would have scored. And it would have been 2-0. That would have changed, I think, the entire direction of that game.
I do want to touch on what you said a little bit.
Yeah.
That if the Rangers lose and they don't make it to the cup, that the season.
I think they have to win the cup. Forget making the cup. They got to win the cup.
Winning the cup. That it was the season. Throw it in the trash.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
Is it irony or is it just the different circumstances that they made it further than say the Knicks?
No, I think it's just
the Knicks are.
The Knicks were just dealt with injuries.
And great job.
No, because the Knicks were dealt with a bunch of injuries. I think if the Knicks were healthy, the Knicks would have won the finals. The Rangers are pretty speedy. Would you say the Rangers are pretty healthy right now?
Yep.
And they're just getting outplayed. They're getting outplayed. They're getting outmuscled.
But the whole narrative on the two is.
But here's the thing, and I had a lot of backlash today on X when I compared Barkov to Mika. And to me, I said to myself, yeah, they're two different players, but they're both two of the top centermen in the league. But you look at what Barkov does on the forecheck. He bodies guys off of him, crashes the net, goes into the grindy areas. Mika doesn't do that. Mika tries to be finesse and does that stupid one-timer that hasn't worked the entire season. That's the difference,
also,
folks.
And I don't think we have it in front of us right now, but what's the time of possession?
Oh, please. Look at the offensive zone times. It's a slaughter.
Bingo.
It's a slaughter.
Bingo.
That, what was it, in game 4? I think it was right before the overtime? I think it was a 3 or 2.5 minute stretch. They had the puck. The Phantoms were able to switch lines, and they would come on and have a new line come. It's just, I don't know. I'm going to be an optimist about this game tomorrow.
I like
it. I hope for the best. Expect 2015, they were down 3-2 to Tampa. They go into Tampa, they beat them 6-2, and then they lose 2-0 in game 7. So, I mean, to me, I would do this. I would do the 11 forward, and I'll ask Tim about this. I would do the 11 forward, 7 defensemen, and put Zach Jones out there. Because Zach Jones can rush up the ice with the puck, and you could take some time off of Fox. And you're not putting it all on Fox at this point. That would be a nice thing. Before Tim comes on, we should do a little NBA. The finals are set.
They are.
They are set. The Celtics and the Mavericks, which is a sexy matchup because you got a lot of stories. Porzingis, Kyrie, former teams going against each other. But Kyrie is probably saging himself before the series starts.
But you know what? This is a great matchup because you have.
It doesn't start another week, but yes.
2 superstars against 2 superstars.
Boston's literally sat around for a week and a half. That's ridiculous. That's so bad on the NBA's part. You really you can't adjust that? Come on.
I'm just think if some other teams had that long to rest before games.
Yeah, you know how bad they're going to shoot? It's going to be bad.
But talk about being able to get healthier. That's a game changer. That's a series changer.
Well, we finally see Luka in a big spot. Speedy's dream for the Knicks, that's definitely dead at this point. That's dead as a doornail. That is not happening. He's in the finals with them now, so Speedy, you could get off that one. And Kyrie's back again with another organization.
His experience, too. Huge in this game. Huge in this entire series.
Well, listen, you hear him from the media. It sounds, gosh, between the anti-Semitic stuff and the whole saging and everything in the locker room and missing because not with the vaccine and all this stuff, the craziness with him in Brooklyn. It sounds like he's grown up in Dallas.
You know what I think it's going to come down to? You have obviously Tatum and Brown, Luka and Kyrie. Obviously, that's going to be the matchup.
And I would take Luka Kyrie, by the way, over those two.
But you know what position I'm really looking into that I think could be the biggest difference?
The interior, the inside, Porzingis coming back.
Is it Porzingis and Horford that's going to step up?
Porzingis was that shooter around today. He was taking jumpers. He's going to be back, Porzingis.
Or it was going to be Gafford, Lively, Washington kind of taking over.
Well, the thing is, Porzingis is going to be as fresh as anybody, and being that big body person that he is, and he could stretch the floor as a 4 or 5. I think that's going to help dramatically. The coaching matchup is fascinating.
Very.
Mazzulla versus Kidd. I don't think is you
drop the cup on the court again.
You're not talking Pat Riley, against Phil Jackson here or something like that. We're not getting into that sexy matchup here, but do you want to take a quick break before Tim comes on, Speedy? We'll do one quick commercial.
Alrighty.
We'll do one quick, and then we'll bring Tim on. When we come back, Tim Peel is going to join us, get into the NHL playoffs. His career as an official, and he'll talk about his podcast with Jeremy Roenick. We're looking forward to it when we come back here on Game On.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply STOP to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Game on!
Game on!
We're back. You're listening to Game On with Josh Silverberg and Eric Bowe.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are back here for Game On live on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, and now we want to bring in longtime NHL official. Speedy, I know you love saying the name of the podcast, so if you want to share with it.
Snipes and Stripes.
He loves saying that name. Ladies and gentlemen, he does it with Jeremy Roenick, longtime NHL official, hockey enthusiast, because I've always been following that Twitter. Love it. A lot on the Rangers, Panthers. Tim Peel. Tim, Josh, Eric, and Speedy. How you doing, man? Thanks for joining us.
I'm awesome, boys. Thanks for having me on. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. It's only fitting that we're doing a hockey podcast, and I'm at the rink, the local rink here in St. Louis. My son Bronson, he's a 2012, and you guys know Pavel Barber. He's putting on a camp here for 3 days, so I got to meet Pavel earlier in the day, and I'm looking forward to watching, see what he's going to teach these kids tonight.
That's awesome to hear, and we're so excited. I was so excited to get you on because I know everybody. My dad remembers you. My dad goes, "Isn't that the guy that had the hot mic?" And I said, "Oh, we'll talk about that later on." But and then my dad's like, "You want to be careful and tread lightly." I said, "I'm sure Tim doesn't really care about talking about it. Dad doesn't care. You know how many times he's been asked about it already? Probably
3 years ago. If listen, to say it still doesn't bother me would be a lie. I'm only human. But the only part that ever bothers me about that is literally 4 weeks after that incident. That's when. So that happened on March 23rd. I was released March 24th. My final game of my career was already set for April 24th in St. Louis.
My birthday. Look at that.
And the Blues had made tickets up already. Tim Peel's final game. They were treating me unbelievable and had 150 people come to the game. And so that day when my kids came home, it was the only time I ever was upset about it, because I'll give you an example. So anyway, my kids came home from school and I had to get down on one knee and tell them that their dad wasn't going to work anymore. I broke down and started crying. But not ironically, before I told them that, I had to tell them that same day on March 24th, Bobby Plager, who was a longtime St. Louis Blues legend, he died. He had a heart attack in his car and unfortunately passed away that afternoon at about 1:30. And what was a funny story about that is Kelly Chase, one of my best buddies, I had talked to him in the morning, and then Chaser calls me up at about 2:00 and he goes, "I've got some bad news for you." And I go, "You've got some bad news for me. Have you seen the way my day's going today?"
I was going to say.
and he goes, "Bobby just died in a car accident." And awesome. Like, I see his son or his daughter around all the time and grandkids. And Bobby was always at the rink, and Bronson knew him. And so I told them that, and I broke down and started crying when I told them that. And then I had to tell them that their dad wasn't going to, that is the only thing, because not to go on about this, but when you screw up in life, and we all have, you get that pit in your stomach.
Always.
And it's tough to get rid of that pit in your stomach. Well, about, 15 years before that, I had taken a tequila shot with Greg Wyshynski in New York. And this is before really, like, we weren't even allowed social media, so I didn't have anything then. And Greg had posted it on Twitter, because Greg had, for whatever reason, had just every game I reffed, I could work a perfect game, and he'd say something negative. So Jeff Merrick from Sportsnet organized this Kumbaya meeting in New York, and we had a few beers and a tequila shot to celebrate our new friendship. And he tweeted it out. Well, that wasn't good. The NHL suspended. The next day, I was supposed to work in Jersey, and they took me off the game. So anyway, when that happened, I had a pit in my stomach, because I knew I screwed up. Like, that was really stupid. But as an official, I don't care whether it's baseball, basketball, football, hockey, any good official and any official that has longevity in that league, when and when not to call penalties. And people may not want to hear that, but that's the reality. And that's what the players expect. And that's what the coaches expect and the GMs expect. And so what I said on the ice was, trust me, there's been a lot worse said on the ice than that.
Oh, I'm sure.
and so anyway, it's all good. It was 3 years ago last month, which is hard to believe. Time goes by when you're having fun. So, but yeah, so that's that.
I mean, I was going to say, so, and were you planning on retiring that? Were you planning on retiring that year anyway, or you were still going to keep working and keep going and everything?
No. That's what I was saying. My final game had already been.
Yeah.
That's right.
Scheduled. Yes, already been scheduled and done. Yep.
April 24th. And what the ironic thing was, this is ironic. I was supposed to retire the year before. I had signed a 4-year contract. It was going to put me to 54, which is kind of really getting up there in age for a referee, because the players are so quick now. And in the year before, around December, January, Stephen Walkham, the director of officiating, called me up, and I was in Calgary for a game that night. And he's like, "Hey, I know you're supposed to retire this year, but would you consider coming back another year, because we've got so many young officials and I want you to help mentor them and work with them and so on." So I wasn't even supposed to be working that year.
Yeah, but what you did. You saved the best for last, though. You went out with a bang. Tim.
I went out with a bang. Buddy. I guess if you want to be on People Magazine and Fox News and CNN, then I guess that's what you do.
Well, I wanted to get into your podcast too as well, because you do it with Jeremy Roenick. How did that partnership and that come about together with the two of you? Because, Jeremy has always also been a very, interesting personality on the air as well and everything like that. And I think the two of you are like two firecrackers out there just going at it with the hockey discussion. I love it when I hear and I see the show. How did that come about?
Yeah, I love JR. He, as you guys know, he's one of the best U.S. born players to ever play the game. In the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, he's got the numbers to be in the big Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. It's a travesty that him and Keith Tkachuk both aren't in there. But they put in the Sedin twins, who don't even have the same stats as Keith and JR. It's all a popularity contest in Canada with the Hockey Hall of Fame. It's ridiculous. But I got to know Keith. I obviously knew him when I reffed him, and then Jeremy. But Keith Tkachuk and I are very good friends, and
his son is bothering me right now in the series, Tim.
Yeah,
I'm a Ranger fan. His son is bothering me.
His son's a stud, man. Both of them. I've known Brady and Matthew since they were 3-4 years old, and so Walt, after I retired, Walt and I were buddies before I retired. We'd play a lot of golf together in the summer and have different parties together and so on, and so I got to know JR through that, and during the 2019 Stanley Cup Finals. Walt and I and JR played golf at Walt's course, and we just started talking back then about possibly doing it. And then about a year and a half ago, I said, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "We got to come up with a name." I said, "Okay." He goes, How about Snipes and Stripes? He goes, "I sniped a lot of goals and you wore the stripes." I go, "Perfect."
That works.
And there's the hoodie there. And so yeah, JR is awesome. I gotta turn his mic off sometimes because he wants to talk too much on some of our podcasts.
Oh, that sounds familiar. He wants to do that with me. Eric wants to do that with me all the time. All the time.
Interesting you say that. Thank you, Tim.
No pun intended, but
That's funny. So no, he's awesome, and we have a lot of fun with it. And it's funny. We made it on our first podcast. We swore a bit, but nothing ridiculous. And he called me up a couple days later, and he goes, "You know what? I don't think we need to swear on our podcast." And I go, "Buddy, I'll do whatever you want. I'm good with." And so we made a decision not to, go into the sewer and swear. And because of that, I get a lot of parents that say, "Hey, I was driving to Columbus with our team and we listened to you guys.
Yep.
How do I do a podcast but tell my son or daughter that are 12 and 10 that they listen to it because dad uses bad language?" Probably not a very good example to set. So
you know what, as a father myself, I understand exactly what you're saying. The lessons, everything. You're trying to help mold them into find young men and women, or ladies, I should say. Question for you though is, obviously you're on the ice, you're with all these players. Obviously Jeremy is your partner and stuff that way. Were there any other players that you were like, "Oh, you know what? He'd be really interesting to do a podcast with, to talk more with off the ice and everything that way"? Is there anyone in particular that you're like, right away, that's the guy?
Yeah, and you guys will probably like this answer. Josh will, I think, being a Ranger fan, but a lot of referees and a lot of people didn't like Sean Avery. But I
love Sean Avery.
I had refereed Sean going back to his OHL days in the Ontario Hockey League, and so I've known Aves for forever, and reffed him his entire career. And he's a guy that, as we know, is going to say it as it is and not sugarcoat it. And sometimes it may be a little distasteful, but other times, people
being modest, Tim. Come on, that's being modest with Sean. I mean, Sean created it. I mean, what did he call Marty at the end of the series? A fat toe or whatever. That fat toe didn't want to shake my hand.
He called him fatso.
Fatso. Marty Brodeur. Fatso didn't want to shake my hand. So
So guys like Sean Avery, Steve Otts just was a funny guy on the ice. He never shut up. He's now the assistant coach with the Blues. Otter. There's a lot of guys that I think would be good at it, and some of them that I refed are doing shows now. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
Because Eric's a Red Wings fan, so they're not doing anything right. Well, I mean, Stevie Y is trying to build it. He's trying to build it. It's just, I guess it's easier to get players to come down to Florida where it's tax free than want to maybe go play in Detroit right now. But he's building it though. They almost made it this year. It's the goaltending they got to fix.
Stevie Y is obviously a guy that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and he's building a good thing there. He built the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he's going to do the same thing with Detroit. We'll see if that coach is going to be around long term. I'm not entirely sold on him, but no, Steve's going to do a tremendous job there, and Detroit's a storied franchise in this league, and
original six. Yep.
And people like to play for that. I think they've got one of that white away jersey. I think is one of the best jerseys in sport. So he'll do a good job there, and they'll be back in the playoffs sooner than later for sure.
Quick story. I'm glad Tim brought up Sean Avery. So my dad's a humongous Bruins fan. Loved Bobby Orr growing up. He was actually at the game where Mike Milbury jumped over the stands and started beating the fan up at the Garden with the shoe. My dad was at that game. He was at that game. Yeah, my dad told his friend. He said, "We got to get the hell out of here." But my dad he took me to the mall, Roosevelt Field. He says, "Here's money. Go get yourself a Ranger shirt. Any player you want." And there's like Shanahan and Gomez and all these guys are on the team. I come out with Sean Avery. And my dad goes, "That's the one you bought? That guy?" I go, "What's wrong with him?" Because my dad said to me, he goes, "I never saw a goalie sprint as fast as Tim Thomas did just to go beat up somebody and go try to kill him."
I remember that play. Sean pretended like he was
like ducking and he was like, "I'm not doing anything."
And he elbowed him in the head. It's funny.
I remember he skated by and he went, whoop.
It's funny. We had you'll have to tell your dad, we had Mike Milbury on our show a few months ago, and Mike told us told us the story, because obviously we've all seen the clip 100,000 times. And I asked him, I said, what happened? And he said it was the last game before their Christmas break, and the buzzer ended. The buzzer went and the game ended, and he went down the tunnel and was in the dressing room. He didn't even know that was going on. And then he heard this ruckus, and he came back out and he saw his teammates up in the stands. And so that's when he jumped over and started beating the guy
with his shoe. I mean, it's funny. You see, people remember that. I mean, I wasn't born way back in. I mean, look, Tim, you remember this in the 80s. My dad always tells me this. In the 80s, I mean, guys didn't wear helmet. Hockey was just no rules. You duke it out. You fight. I mean, the Good Friday Massacre game between Quebec and Montreal in the playoffs. I mean, that was one of the. I mean, what's his name? He got an eye injury and his career ended. I believe it was Jean Rattel. Jean Rattel had it. Yep, after Louis Slager suckered him with a punch. But be it as it may, I could go on and on with you about this. And again, we're talking to Stripes and Stripes podcast host and former NHL official Tim Peel. Tim, as obviously a Ranger fan, I'm always reading your tweets and everything of that nature. I wanted to get your thoughts on this series so far. Eric and I had a conversation before. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed at the way that this core, for the third year in a row, has a series lead and is not showing up when they need to be. Now, some say I'm not giving Florida enough credit. I think I'm giving them their flowers. I mean, Tkachuk. It's not even Tkachuk and Barkov as much at scoring. It's Verhaeghe. It's Forsling.
Right.
It's all these guys. And what is the problem with this New York Ranger team, if there is a problem, and what are your thoughts on how Game 6 can go tomorrow? Because between me and you, again, I'm going to be watching on an iPad. My son, who's 2.5, wanted to go to Monster Jam tomorrow. So I'm taking him to go see Monster Jam. So I told my wife, I said, have the iPad and have the phone charged because the show starts at 7 and the game's at 8. So can this be salvaged for the Rangers, or do you think it's done? I think this is it for them. This is as far as they can go because I feel for Igor, man. I really do. I see Lundqvist vibes in my head when I watch Igor and how he's playing.
Well, first of all, you're a good dad taking your son over a hockey game.
Thank you. I did this 2.5 months ago. I'm taking him to the pit party even at 2:30 to 5:30 to go see Gravedigger. He's like, he kept saying, Daddy, go see Gravedigger. I said, oh, we'll go tomorrow. We're going tomorrow and everything like that. I told him, and I said, now listen, during the Stanley Cup in 2014, I booked a vacation with my girlfriend, wife now, obviously, girlfriend at the time to go to Cancun. I missed games 1 and 2. I was at a bar in Mexico watching games 1 and 2. But anyway, I'll let you go.
You know what?
Bad.
I don't think there's anything wrong, Josh, with the Rangers. Listen, they're in the Final Four, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got 4 good teams. I think any 4 of these teams could win the Stanley Cup. Edmonton, Dallas, Florida, the Rangers. Every one of them is just awesome to watch. But to your point, Kreider's got to step up, right? Or not Kreider, Zibanejad. I think.
Oh,
I think Kreider's hurt, and Chris is one of my favorite guys. I always loved roughing him. He's such a good guy. We'd always talk and have a few laughs. But Zibanejad's got to pick it up. Panarin's got to pick it up. You see how Barkov is playing. Like, that was game? Was that game 4? Yes.
I got pushback online. I got pushback from other people that told me you can't compare Barkov to Mika because they're 2 completely different style centermen. And I said, they're 2 of the best centermen in the league, and they both do two-way games together. What I look at is I see how Barkov, and not to cut you off, Tim, but I see how Barkov forechecks and he crashes the net and he takes control of it. Mika, I think, is a lot of finesse and tries to do that corner one-timer that Bobrovsky sees it a mile away. It's so simple.
Eric, I see what you mean now. He asked me a question, but then he answers it.
I know. Yeah,
hey?
I know.
Sorry.
Tim, they're just bothering me. I need a cup, man. I need one.
Eric, you need a mute button, buddy.
I do.
In college, I was able to with him. Now, I gotta get a producer to step
Speedy's
up.
in charge.
No, that's all. Listen, I know it's tough. I think the 2 best teams, and the Ranger fans might not agree with this 100%, but I think the 2 best teams left are in the Final Four right now are Dallas and Florida. I think top to bottom, lines 1 through 4, the back end, the goaltending that they're getting, although, as you guys know and have seen, Shesterkin has played unbelievable. And listen, they only got to win. They got to win 2 games. Like, you go down to Florida, they win that game. They got to get their power play going. They got to score a power play goal. But there is no reason why the Rangers can't come back and win this series. There's none at all. Like, listen, the Florida Panthers aren't an unbeatable team. They're beatable just like any other team that's left. So it can happen, but they've got to bring their A game, and their star players have to outperform the star players from Florida, and they've got to get secondary scoring from their second, third, fourth lines. I think I heard today that Rempe's out, and I'm a big Rempe fan. I love Matt, but when you're only playing 3-4 minutes a game, that's just not going to cut it in the playoffs.
You played 2 minutes and 45 seconds last night, Tim. You're basically making it a shorthanded game for them. You're playing 11 forwards, and you're double shifting Kreider and Trocheck on that 4th line. It's not going to work. I think. Listen, Tim, you know this. Eric, I've told you this. Speedy too. Brodzinski is not the sexiest name out there. We know that. We get that. The truth of the matter is, though, he's got speed. What I would do if I'm the Rangers, and Tim, you could tell me if I'm wrong, I would go 11 forward, 7 defensemen tomorrow, because clearly Fox is hurt. You could see it. He's playing on one leg. He's not what he is. He definitely is not what he is. Put Zach Jones in there. That kid can rush up the ice with the puck, and he's quick on his feet, and he's agile. That's the route I would go if I'm Laviolette, and Laviolette's he's my favorite coach ever. I love Laviolette. Love the guy. I'm so happy when the Rangers hired him. I wanted him for the last 12 years for this team. They were throwing Vigneault and Gallant and Quinn at me. And I'm like, Laviolette's sitting right there. He's right there. He's been to 3 cups with 3 different organizations. Put him on the team. What are you doing? So,
yeah, 11-7 is not a bad idea. I've seen Craig Berube do it a lot here in St. Louis. 11-7 isn't a bad idea, especially if Adam Fox is injured and unable to play the minutes that he usually would play. Go with the 7th forward or defenseman and go with 11 forwards and you're gonna have to listen. Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk, they're getting double shifted. You're gonna have to play your stars, and like I said earlier, the Rangers stars have to outperform the Florida Stars, or unfortunately, this series might not be coming back to New York. And I hope it does. I hope we have a Game 7.
Me too, Tim.
So one of my favorite Game 7s that I ever worked was 2014 Rangers and Flyers.
I saw you said that on Twitter. You said there's nothing like officiating in Madison Square Garden.
It's the best. It's the best. And it was the last time Philly and the Rangers have ever played a Game 7. And I was working the game with Chris Rooney, who's refereeing your game tomorrow in Florida. And it was kind of back then. We didn't call as much as they do now. And we called one penalty in the first period. And it was against Zach Rinaldo, and Zach and I have messaged each other on Twitter since then. And I was like, Zach, do you remember that game? I said, we only gave one penalty, and it was to you for interference. He blew somebody up that didn't have.
What was it? I think it was Dan. I think it was Dan. I think Carcillo scored a goal in that Game 7, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
For the Rangers, it was crazy.
I think
Dan
so.
Carcillo.
But I remember sitting in the dressing room at MSG an hour and a half before the game, and the Ranger fans are chanting an hour and a half for Game 7. Let's go Rangers! Let's go Rangers! And we come out of that tunnel, and the lights are down, and I'm like, I didn't need a Red Bull that night to get me going. I'm like, let's friggin' go, boys! Like we get pumped up, but Game 7 sometimes are the easiest to officiate too, because the players play completely different than they do.
They're so tight. They're so tight.
Well, they're so tight, but they're so tight, but they play a disciplined game. They don't play like they do in a game 1, 2, 3, and 4 in a series where they might take there might be more. Well, I guarantee you, if you look at the stats, Game 7 penalties compared to games 1 through 4, Game 7 will always be less. And it's not because the officials put their whistles away. A big part of it is because the players play a disciplined game, because they know they take a penalty, it might cost them that game. So it's sometimes Game 7s are the easiest to officiate because the players just play.
Now, fully understand if you can't say names or anything, but was there any particular skater on the ice that you would just have the biggest eye roll and be like, all right, here's the crybaby? You know, a lot of the fans are always quick to label, oh, this guy's always complaining about calls and this and that. But was there anyone in particular that you just, here we go again?
No, not really. Like there's obviously guys that you didn't get along with, and it's going to happen in any profession and any sports league. A player's going to think that you have it out for them because you've given him so many penalties over his career, and it couldn't be further from the truth. As far as like, I've told this story a few times, so I'm sorry if you guys have heard it, but David Clarkson played for Jersey, Toronto, and Columbus, and when he was playing for Columbus especially, he hated referees. He hated refs. And so I didn't like him either, because it was just, you got tired of him just constantly yelling at you and swearing at you. And so I didn't like him, but it didn't mean that I gave him penalties. I just didn't like the guy. And he didn't like me, but he didn't like refs in general, whether it was me or anybody else. And that day I got released, I was driving home from the airport here in St. Louis, and it was 8:00 in the morning, 8:30 in the morning. My phone rings, and it's a Columbus number, but I didn't recognize the number. And I answer the phone and he goes, "Hey, Tim, it's David Clarkson." And I'm like, for a second, honest to God, for a split second, I thought he was going to say, "Hey, it looks good on you. I never liked you, blah, blah, blah." And he goes, I hope you don't mind. I asked Marty Brodeur for your number, and Marty gave it. And I said, "No, not at all, David." And he's like, I'm retired now. I live in Denver. And I was skating with a bunch of retired guys this morning when we heard the news, and we were all in the dressing room going, "What a joke," and so on. And he said, "I just want you to know," he goes, "whenever I'd see your name up on the board in the refs room or in their dressing room," he said, "I always knew we had one of the best refs, but I also knew we had one of the fairest refs, and I just wanted you to know that." And I got choked up because I'm like, here's a guy that I didn't even think liked me, and he didn't like me. But what he did do, and a longtime referee Bill McCreary, who in my mind is probably one of the top, if not the top referee to ever work in the National Hockey League, he told me early in my career, he says, "You never want to be liked. You just want to be respected, because you're not going to get the players to like you. The only way they like you is if you don't call penalties on them. But you just want them to respect you." So for a guy like that to take the time and call me, it meant a lot to me. And that was one of several calls that day, but it was from a guy that we certainly didn't get along when we were on the ice. So it tells you it kind of tells you the respect factor that players and officials have in this league. Even though the players might complain about the officiating, they respect them because they do know that they have the best officials in the world. And there's a respect factor that, hey, you might be just a ref, but I know how difficult it was for you to get to the NHL as it was for me to be a player. So yeah, it's a great camaraderie that we have. And I love, that's one of the reasons I think hockey's the best sport.
Snipes and Stripes podcast co-host Tim Peel, former NHL official. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know how busy you are watching with your son and everything like that, but we appreciate it. What is, you could share if you want, you don't have to, just, what is the craziest story you can remember being on the ice, whether it was on the ice, something before the ice, before the players went out there? What's the craziest story you could remember? Is it a play? Is it an argument? Was it something John Tortorella said to you? They brought that name up specifically for a reason, if there was anything there. What is the craziest thing you can remember being an NHL official in this league, other than, of course, the hot mic?
I don't know, crazy, but like I loved Torts. Like I'll still text with Torts. I
wanted him back for a second round.
Yeah, I love Torts. I loved him when he was the coach in Columbus, and in New York, and I love the guy. And he calls it the way it is. A couple funny stories. I remember, it was one was actually at MSG, and what's the guy's name? Kennedy for Pittsburgh. I think it's Tyler Kennedy. And Sean Avery kept on saying to him all game, he was like, "Hey, pig nose, hey, pig nose, F you, pig nose," and just kept calling this Pittsburgh player Kennedy pig nose. And finally I went up to Sean. I'm like, "Why are you why are you calling him pig nose?" He goes, "Peels," he goes, "Look at his nose." And I look over and I'm like, "Oh my God, that is, it's funny, but
it's an image now that you can't get out of your head because of the words.
It's an image." And then I remember the God rest his soul, Chris Simon, who passed away recently. He was a tough guy. I think he played for the Rangers for a little bit.
Islanders. He did that famous. He did the famous whack on Ryan Holwig when he almost smashed him, almost killed him.
He was tough. He was crazy. And I think we were in Minnesota, and he was playing for Calgary or Minnesota. And anyway, one of his teammates was getting abused. One of his young players was getting abused by a veteran from the other team. And Chris came up, and I forget who the player was, but Chris came up to this guy and said, like, "Dude, what are you doing?" And this player goes, "I'm just welcoming him to the league." And Chris goes, "Well, consider me his secretary, and all messages go through me." And I stand there laughing, like, consider me his secretary, and all messages come through me. It was classic. So, yeah, there was a lot of other things that I probably can't this show's PG rated, but
well, my dad. You asked my dad. My dad did have a question for you. He wants to know: were you around when Jim Schoenfeld called Don Koharski a fat pig?
No, I wasn't. What's so funny is I worked with Coho. When I broke in the league in '98, John Koharski was one of the refs that I looked up to, and he helped mentor me, and he actually is the one he lived in St. Louis, but was originally from Canada, and when I was looking to move to the U.S., he's like, Peelsy, moved to St. Louis, and he took such good care of me when I moved here, and so I'd asked Coho about that story, and what was funny is him and Shawnee Schoenfeld are buddies. Like when Don after Don stepped off the ice, he became a supervisor for the NHL, and Schoenfeld was scouting and helping other lots of teams and so on, and they'd sit up in the press box together and they were buddies, but that incident is one of the all-time classics.
Yeah, my dad's a hockey connoisseur with this stuff. I mean, one of the best gifts I ever bought him was Bobby Orr classic Bruins jersey back in the day, and that was there were two guys that were my dad's guys. Love Bobby Orr, he loved Ray Bourque, but my dad always will tell me Speedy's going to stand back for this one. We have this argument. I had him as a co-host on the show, filling in for Eric once. Now, Tim, you just sit back for a second. I have Henrik Lundqvist as one of the greatest goaltenders of all time. You would agree with that, right? I think you would say that's fair, right, Tim?
Yeah, no, he's a tremendous goaltender. I when they say
that's better, by the way, just letting you
know. When they say greatest of all time, like, I've got a huge amount of respect for Henrik, but at the end of the day, he didn't win a cup. Now,
no, that was the killer. Yeah.
Now, not everybody has to win a cup to be a great player, but to put him up the greatest of all time with Patrick Roy, Marty Brodeur, Belfour, I don't know. He's Hall of Fame worthy. He's all of that. He was a tremendous goaltender. I'll leave it at that.
So it gets better because my dad's writing to me, Tim agrees with me. I said, yeah, I didn't even get to ask Tim the question yet. So my dad always says, Tim Thomas is a better goalie than Henrik Lundqvist. And I go to him, I go, what is wrong with you?
Now,
what is wrong with you, man?
Does your dad live in Boston?
No, New York. He hated the Rangers growing up because I can't stand the Rangers, and he loved Bobby Orr, so he was like, "That's my guy right there," and everything of that nature. That was his guy. But I will say this: he loves Brad Marchand, and he says, you all see Brad as like he's licking people's ears and this stuff. He's getting on his, but he's a great player. And the truth of the matter is, and I always tell my dad this, I said, the guy, he never won an MVP, because they were never going to vote for him because he was such a what at times. So my dad goes, I don't care. He's got a cup. He's been to another cup. How many has your team won in the last few years? Oh, that's right.
Two things. One, and your dad will love this, Boston was one of my favorite buildings to work in. I grew up in St. John, New Brunswick, up the coast in Canada.
Sure.
And St. John, New Brunswick, where I grew up in Boston, have a lot of ties going back hundreds of years. I don't want to get into a history lesson, but that's where a lot of the Irish immigrants landed, was in Boston and in St. John. So I would always come down as a kid to Boston and go to the Bruins games and go see the Red Sox in the summer. And I loved working in Boston. And Brad Marchand is and was one of my favorite players. This is a kid from Nova Scotia, just a couple hours from where I grew up. And I think he was a 5th round draft pick, if I'm not mistaken. And nobody thought that he was going to become the player and the leader he is. And yeah, the licking and all that. But that was years ago when he was young and immature. And now, you saw he can change a series. He can put that.
He got cheap shot in the series by Bennett, and that sucked.
But you know what? He's the first one to say, "Hey, he's done a lot of stuff. He's done a lot of stuff in his career," and I loved what he said because
so did I.
because the snowflakes out there don't want to hear it. But he's like, in the playoffs, you want to injure somebody, you want to knock them out of if you can knock off a good player and knock them out of the series, then that might give your team a better chance to win. And I loved what he said in it because he spoke the truth. So I love the guy. He's one of my he was one of my favorite guys when I reffed him. Him and I, for whatever reason, just always got along, and I love the guy. I've got so much respect for him. And Bergeron was one of my all-time.
Patrice was. I mean, that core. It's amazing that core never won a cup with Pasta, Bergeron, Marchand. It's crazy.
Bergie's such a class act, and but Jimmy Montgomery, they're doing a good job there in Boston.
I agree with you. It's amazing what they got out of them this year, losing what they lost. It's crazy how they did. And Swayman is, at least now they have the right step in who they know the number one goalie is for that team. Now they know. Now they have clarity on it. I mean, look, my father and I still argue about who's better, Adam Fox or Charlie McAvoy, because they both came from Long Island and everything like that. One's from Jericho and one's from Long Beach. So we always argue that. But my last question for me to you is, what got you into wanting to be an official? It's a two-parter. It's two different questions. What got you to want to be an official in the NHL, number one? And number two, what is your Stanley Cup prediction and who wins? Please, Tim, don't disappoint me with that one. I have a vibe you're going to go with Florida in this one, but the floor is yours.
Well, I grew up in New Brunswick, and I was adopted. I grew up in a trailer park, didn't come from any money, and the trailer park was right next to the golf course, this private country club that we certainly weren't members at. And summertime, I was bored one day, complaining, nothing to do. My mom suggested, why don't you go over and see if you can get a caddying job at the course, because there was a tournament going on. Went over, got a job caddying. Next thing you know, I'm cleaning clubs, working in the pro shop. Spent from 13 to 19 working at the pro shop and working at the golf club. It was some of my favorite memories as a kid. So that winter, that was in the summertime. Then that winter rolled around, and the town I grew up in was a town of 1,500 people, very small town in New Brunswick called Hampton. One rink, no traffic lights. Everybody hung out the rink. Everybody played hockey. And mom and dad were like, hey, you can't obviously caddy in the wintertime. Why don't you start ref? I was 13. Why don't you start reffing the little kids? And so I went and did the clinic and started reffing little kids for $5-10 a game. And I enjoyed it. And I was a decent hockey player. I was really small. I'm still only 5'10", but I was really small when I was 13. And so I was a good skater, but I wasn't really built to play at any high level. And so then I just kept refereeing, and the American Hockey League was big in the Maritimes. That's what they call New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island. And they had a team in Newfoundland. The Toronto Maple Leafs farm team was there. And the American Hockey League was really strong in those four provinces back then when I was growing up. So I would work the lines. I would be the local linesman, and the NHL contracted officials, the minor league guys, would come in, and I would be their linesman. And then my big break was in 94, 95. The bank that I worked for in New Brunswick gave me a promotion and moved me to Toronto, and I got in the OHL. And that's when things, because they scout for referees like they scout for players. And so they would come to my game. I wouldn't know that they were there. And your dad would remember these names, the old John D'Amico and Ron Finn and Brian Lewis and Terry Gregson, and these guys that were retired now would come and watch me. And then that's how I got hired. But and I just, I loved it. And I'm like, I was fortunate enough that I was selected to work the Olympics in 2014. And I remember being over there, and I was working the bronze medal game between the USA and Finland. And I'm like, I would have the same feeling when I'd be at MSG or any NHL building. I'm like, I can't believe this kid that grew up in a trailer park and is now refereeing on the biggest stage, you know, in the world at MSG or the Olympics. So it was great. I loved it. As far as my prediction, I don't know who's going to win it. I think it's going to be Dallas and Florida. And I'm sorry, as a Ranger fan, I just think Florida's.
My feelings aren't hurt, Tim. I'm so used to it. It's almost like it just comes as a Mets fan, a Jets fan, a Knicks fan.
Man, you were
a little speckle on top of it.
You were a glutton for punishment.
Let me tell you. Meanwhile, this one across from me, he's always like, "Oh, let me just lollygag around." He's seen the Yankees win, the Giants win, the Red Wings win. He keeps going. It's not bad. Meanwhile, he always says to me, you know, and this is the other thing that annoys me. My dad, he's a Mets fan, a Packers fan, because he grew up with Bart Starr.
Yeah.
A Bruins fan and a Knicks fan, and he's always telling me, because he's seen the Bruins win and he's seen the Packers win and he's seen the Mets win. He's always like, "You just got to enjoy the ride, Josh. You just got to enjoy the ride." And I said, "Well, when you watch last night's game and nothing's happening on your home ice in the third period and you're getting bullied around, it's pretty hard to enjoy the ride." You know what I'm saying? It's hard to enjoy it. But I mean, I've seen this Ranger team. Tim, I don't know, man. I'm never positive. I'm usually an optimist, as Eric likes to say. I think this team has come through a lot this year when their backs are against the wall. And I love Laviolette so much. I just think there's one more jolt of just that special moment for this team. And I know we want to talk about the 94 stuff. There's 94. It happened in Game 6. They were down 3-2 to the Devils, and Messi scored a hat trick. Like, I think there's just one more bit from this core.
I hope so.
They could show it. I really, really, really do. I think Kreider will be the one that does it. I do.
I hope so, because if that's the case, you know, we'll have a Game 7, and everybody wants to see Game 7 at MSG.
That stand's going to be so tight, though.
Like I said earlier, the Rangers can easily win the next 2 games. They can easily win Game 6 tomorrow in Florida. But like I mentioned earlier, their stars, they've got to play better. They got to find a way to play better.
They got to forecheck. They got to stop trying to finesse the puck. They got to stop doing this whole thing. But before I let you go, the killer was they were up 1-0. Kreider scores the shorty, and I understood Gustafsson. I was all for Gustafsson. It was a no-win situation for Gustafsson, because the truth is Igor gets knocked over if the Rangers don't stick up for him. Oh, they're a bunch of cowards. This is what they do. They're they're just pussyfooting around, is what they would say. Whereas if they do stick up for Shesterkin, now it's up. Now it's going to be a penalty now and everything like that. And it would have been a 5-on-3 for 1:40. I'm sorry, Tim, you're a former official. I don't know if you call that at that moment. I feel like Florida's done so much worse in that series where they've gone away with it more. I mean, there was, Game 3? I think there were 14 penalty minutes on the Rangers, were just 2 for the Panthers. I mean, you couldn't let that go. I mean, it was just, he's just sticking up for his dude in the crease. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you know what? It's a tough call. It's tough. You know, trust me, I'm not making excuses for officials, but man, it is a tough.
No, I agree.
Not understand how tough our sport is to officiate. When a quick story before we go. When I was in the playoffs, there's always a standby official, and so if I wasn't working and I was a standby that night, and we would stand by the Zamboni on the glass, and I'm standing there in my workout uniform or outfit and sneakers, and I'm watching our guys in the corner, and I'm watching them dodge pucks and sticks and players, and I'm like, how do we do that? And then when you're in that position, you just something takes over, and you just know how to react and move and react to a penalty. And it's all about good sight lines for penalties. And trust me, the NHL, the higher ups, they would rather the officials miss something than call a so-called 1-minute penalty, something that really wasn't that egregious, and make a team shorthanded and that team loses. It's a tough it's a tough job, and I wish I see it on social media, and I think it's even worse now because of social media. How
100%. Oh yeah, it's toxic now. Oh God, it's toxic.
No, I just today, like, I make some comments, and you got fired for fixing games. I never fixed a game. I'm not Tim Donaghy from the NBA. I never fixed a hockey game, and if I did, then I didn't do a very good job because my financial planner has not seen any of that money that I made from fixing. But people are like, they just say stuff that they would never say to your face, and that's the unfortunate thing about social media. But you know what? It's a tough job, but you know what? Saying that, I haven't seen any game in the playoffs that I could say this team lost this game because of the officials. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen a coach say that. I haven't seen a player say that. They might not always agree with everything, and I get that. People are frustrated. Edmonton fans right now are frustrated because they're not getting as many power plays as Dallas. Well, guess what? Dallas was the least penalized team this year in the NHL. The least. They had 556 penalty minutes. Edmonton was the seventh most penalized team with 800 minutes. So they had 46 more penalty minutes. And so that's why Dallas doesn't take a lot of penalties. They're a very disciplined team. Yep. And we see that with Florida. You got to stay that's the key. That is going to be the key for the Rangers tomorrow night, is they have to stay out of the penalty box. If they can stay out of the penalty box and play that team 5-on-5, then they have a very good chance of bringing it back to New York. If they can't stay out of the penalty box, we see that power play with Matthew Tkachuk on the bumper there, Barkov, Reinhart. Their power play is phenomenal. So it should be exciting. I'm looking forward to tonight's game, and hopefully a bit of me, not because I'm Canadian. It's got nothing to do with that, but I'm kind of hoping Edmonton wins, just because I want to see McDavid and Draisaitl more, and I'd love to see them both make it to the Stanley Cup, because they've had quite a few. They're two of the best players in the league, and they've never made it to a Stanley Cup final. And I think it'd be great for hockey if now an Edmonton Rangers series would be.
I was just going to say, you want to bring the ratings? So, Tim, we're going to put you back out there tonight and tomorrow. You're going to work a double shift tonight and tomorrow. We're going to fly you.
I'm going to fix both games. That's what you're
right.
saying? Yeah.
Let's go. Let's do it. What do you say? Come on. You get a little piece of the money action when they go on ABC.
But you're right, absolutely. Like, come on, I'm sorry. Dallas is a big market, okay? Dallas is a big TV market.
I mean, with Florida again for the 5th year in a row.
But you've got New York Rangers, and then in Canada, you've got Edmonton with Sportsnet in Canada, and ESPN in the US for the ratings would be. It would probably go back and be one of the highest rated NHL playoffs, like the 1994 series was.
I mean, this would be the 5th year in a row. A Florida team goes to the Cup. Tampa 3 years in a row, and then Florida 2 years in a row. It's ridiculous.
That's a good point. I didn't think of it that way.
Oh God, it's like egregious. I can't take it anymore. It's like enough. You got the beaches, you got your warm weather. Enough. Leave us alone. Well, like I said, Tim, we really do appreciate you coming on with us. Before we let you go, and we'd love to have you on in the future, 100%, and everything that we'd love to get you back on the show again, and all of our other shows. I'm sure Speedy's going to want to reach out to you for the Sports Allowed match. God, good luck if you meet Arrow. That guy is something else. But anyway, you have to take a Xanax before you meet him, right? Am I wrong or right about that one, Eric?
I still haven't found out how to mute you yet.
Well, listen, it is what it is. But Tim, before we let you go, how can the fans reach you on social media, website, podcast, any merchandise? Because you got the shirt on, everything like that. Sell yourself right now to the fans.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I'm Tim C. Peel 20 on Twitter, and we just started a new neck guard company, because neck protection is very important, and it's a mandate. It's now a mandate. It's been mandated in Canada for years, but it's now just become mandated in the U.S. for USA Hockey for any players and officials 18 years and younger. So Ray Barilli, who is the longtime trainer for the St. Louis Blues, we designed a neck guard and you can see some of my posts the last couple of days. It's called Protected, and we just were approved by the National Hockey League a couple months ago, and we actually have the number one cut resistant product on the market. And the NHL sent a memo, and the graph is on one of my Twitter accounts, and it shows our rating is being the highest in cut resistant neck guards. So yeah, we're doing that. You can reach that. You can email me. You can find me on social media and get that information, but follow me on Tim CPL 20, watch Snipes and Stripes on any of your podcast platforms, and with my partner, Jeremy Roenick. And I appreciate you guys having me on, and good luck tomorrow night, Josh. I know it's going to be, well, you got the monster truck show, so you got a little bit.
I got the Monster Jam truck, but it's 7:00. Maybe Gravedigger does his little run. I go to my wife. I go, look, you got about an hour in. You think we could hit the head? You got to get on out of here. She's going to be like, she's pregnant too. My wife's going to be like, are you nuts? He's not leaving now.
See, Tim, you said he was a good father, and I'll vouch for him for that. Especially taking him to that. But it's because of the fandoms. He's got to throw some stuff out to him and help him out.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations on having another one.
Thank you. Another boy. I'm trying to fill my own hockey team. That's what I'm trying to do, Tim. You know what I'm saying? But it's just funny because my brother's he's not even a hockey guy, but he's gonna poke the bear when we're watching, because we're going with my brother and my nephew. And he's going to poke the bear, and he's going to go, the Rangers losing yet? Oh, boy, Igor doesn't look like Lundqvist out there. I could tell you he's going to do that the whole night. It's going to drive me up a wall. But, Tim, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Please don't be a stranger. Come on our show anytime. We appreciate you, man. And thanks for everything you did for the NHL. And good luck and everything. And we'll talk to you soon down the road, okay?
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. Take care.
Thanks. Former NHL official and co-host of Snipes and Stripes podcast, Tim Pio. That was great, huh, Speedy? I know Speedy's going to want him on his show now.
He was fantastic.
The great stories there.
That was, I mean, look, he's just an F. My brother is going to do that. Because my brother for years made fun of Lundqvist. He did it for years. Now my brother's going to do it tomorrow. He's going to be like, oh, Shesterkin. He doesn't look like Lundqvist out there.
I'll have to text him and say, keep it up.
Why would you want that? My team's never won even a lick of anything. Why would you even want that?
I'll hope he's wrong.
No, you don't. You hope he's right, because there's part of you that does like it that my teams don't win. There is a part of you that likes it. I know you being one of my best friends, there is a part of you that says, I do relish this because Josh is so freaking miserable that he's almost like numb to the pain at this point. Whatever happens, happens.
It would be a weird opposite of just like knowing you. It's like, oh, wow. Here's Josh and his teams, and
Oh my God, my team won something. I wouldn't even know what to do. Well, I know Eric. He will not be on next week. He has an event that he has to go to. So there is a co-host I have in mind. Leave it as a surprise. I'm going to ask him later today. So Eric will be back in the future. He's got some stuff he's got to take care of. All positive, good things. Very happy, man. But Tim was amazing. That was great. I mean, the interview was so long. We're so over. I mean, I don't. My parents are watching. My son, my wife is at your wife's house, so it's fine. I'm not going to get in trouble tonight. You might. I'm not. Be it as it may.
Hey now. Hey now.
So we're going to get to the You're Better Than That segment. Everybody wants me, I'm sure, to go first because we know where I'm going to get at with this, and that is the New York Metropolitans and their disaster of a dumpster fire that they have been literally the entire season. Now, the Jorge Lopez thing, brutal. Now, listen, his son is going through, obviously, he has a transplant that he's trying to go through right now. He was kind of like this in Minnesota as well. The truth of the matter is, though, there was a time for Mendoza to maybe set the example for when he threw the glove. Instead, he threw the glove and you just let him walk off like that and didn't do any discipline. Now they cut him, but it's not Mendoza's decision to do that. There was a time to discipline him. Are the Mets a dumpster fire right now? 110% they are. Could they trade? I think Pete Alonso is going to get traded. I think this core, a lot of it's going to get traded. I think they'll somehow find a way to trade Lindor. Because of look at what he's doing right now, Lindor. He's one of the hottest hitters in baseball. He's one of the best shortstops in the game. If the Mets to offer to take, like they did with Scherzer, 60% of the contract, and they get maybe a high tier prospect again. Maybe you go that route, possibly. I don't know. Maybe they hold on to Lindor. I think Nimmo stays. I think Pete's gone. A lot of these guys are going to be gone. Marte's going to be gone. McNeil's going to be gone. They just DFA'd Narvaez today. Sounds like Francisco Alvarez is very close. He had a home run in his first at bat in the rehab.
A trade for another catcher.
Yeah, I know, from the Yankees. I don't even know who the guy is. Who is he? What is he?
He's a guy that the Yankees felt was okay to trade to the Mets for cash consideration.
So there you go. That's where the Mets are right now. Even though Tom Weston is actually playing pretty well, the Mets DFA Narvaez. But the Mets are a dumpster fire right now. What is there to say? Edwin Diaz is a mess. It's bad right now. Now, I disagree with what somebody said on the network yesterday where David Stearns is on the clock. David Stearns just put 1 foot through the door. He signed a 5-year deal, Speedy? Let the clock click after next year, the year after. Look at what he came into. A minor league system that had no pitching depth. You could thank Epler. You could thank Brody Van Wagenen. You could thank all those idiots, Zach Scott, and those morons that didn't know how to draft. And they had bad contracts that Steve Cohen gave out. Scherzer, Verlander, Lindor's is not great. Pete wanted 350 plus mil. He's not better than Matt Olson or Freddie Freeman. He should not get that. Marte's is not great. Nimmo's is kind of fair market for a center fielder. I'm not going to kill him for that. Diaz is not good right now. Bad contracts. Steve Cohen did that. Why? Because he was misguided by people that he thought he could trust, like Sandy Alderson and Billy Epler. That's what happened. Point blank. He was misguided. Now David Stearns is trying to do what he wants to do with this team. And I'm going to give Stearns time to fix this debacle. Because Stearns came into a dumpster fire. What did you expect was going to happen this year? I said the ceiling was 81, 82 win season and a third wild card spot. If I didn't have high expectations, I had them winning, I think, 78 games this year, 77 games. I didn't think they were going to be good. They might only win 66, 67 games now. They're not expected to be good.
So then who is it? The entire Mets organization right now, or who is getting the better than that?
Oh, it's right now. It's the New York Mets.
All right, so it's as a whole. Got it.
As a whole.
Okay.
As a whole, the New York Mets. You're better than that. I want to get into a little bit more, but we had Tim on. It was great. It was amazing. I didn't want to end that. But the New York Mets are. I don't agree with the whole let's put David Stearns on the clock. The guy hasn't even been here barely been here for 2 months.
But he also took over a team that traded off.
He traded off everybody, and they're trying to get out. They're trying to get out from the luxury tax because of these contracts. Like Scherzer's contract is done after this year. Verlander's is done after this year. Marte's is done next year. McNeil, I think they could actually get rid of it. They might have to eat some of that, but it's really not even that bad of a contract. Alonso, they don't even have signed long term. I'm all for trading Pete now. I don't think he's a winning ball player. I'm sorry. I don't. He doesn't change the trajectory of an organization like a Juan Soto does. That's my opinion on it. Eric, and then Speedy last.
Sticking with baseball.
Oh, look, the Mets are losing already. How wonderful.
Sticking with baseball. And you know what? It doesn't necessarily have to be major leagues. It could be all the fun stuff. But you know what?
You know what grinds my gears? I'm waiting for him to say that.
When is enough of getting the pitchers injured? Let's take away the spider tack and a grip. Let's take away.
Are you going to the Clark Schmidt situation with the Yankees?
Let's take away.
Oh God.
Some rest in between pitches. Let's speed it up. Let's do all these things to not help the pitcher stay healthy in their longevity.
You're upset about Clark Schmidt.
Not necessarily.
That's where this came from.
Look at Baltimore today. 2 starters, UCL. 2 starters out for season.
As long as it's not Corbin Burns.
It's insane, the rapid pace, it seems like. I could be wrong. Numbers could be, even or at a plateau, but it just seems like each and every day there's something new. And again, you have different layers with it. You have the grip of the spider tack. You have the pitch clock. You have all these things that I think are contributing and factoring into it. And you're hurting the longevity and you're killing the pitcher basically right now. So you know what? Baseball, figure it out. Come on. You're better than that.
Speeder!
All right. Well, mine will be very simply put as a Ranger fan that is very nervous about this defense as a whole, and that's the captain of the team, Jacob Trouba, with his 11th penalty of the postseason. I've never seen, besides like a guy that naturally fights a lot.
I think the next closest is 6 with Aaron Ekblad, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember like a regular player besides somebody that fights a lot. Like I don't remember a regular player having that many penalties in the postseason. 11 penalties. Really, Jacob Trouba? You're better than that.
He's so bad, dude. He's so bad. He cannot stop the rush. Well, we have to run because I don't want Eric to get in trouble anymore. What? I don't ever know. You never know. Krista could be like, where is he? Am I right or wrong?
Wrong.
Lie. By the way, where was Harold tonight?
No idea.
That's good. That's good. Good.
But also, too, that means we just saved a lot. There was no way to end that interview sooner.
No, I couldn't. Tim was great. I didn't want to disrespect him because I wanted to hear about the history of how he got into the NHL too, which is crazy. I didn't know he was adopted. I didn't know he came from the trailer park or anything like that. Did not know that. But Tim is great. I know Speedy's going to reach out to him like tomorrow, probably. And Speedy's going to be like, "Can you come back next week?"
I don't usually bother guests on weekends, but I will try again. Definitely.
Hey, well, see now, Speedy. Here's the trade-off. You ready? There's a trade-off. You get Tim. I get Neil Smith.
Yes.
Thank you. Let's figure that out, Speedy. Figure that out, Speedy. That's the trade.
And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, you need to keep listening to Game On.
Okay, if I could get him on next week when so-and-so, you know who is co-hosting the show with me next week, that would be the funniest freaking thing on the planet. Oh. That would be so funny. He would literally be like, really, this is what we're doing this week? We're doing this? We're doing this week? That's what he would say. Yes,
Make sure you tune in next week, everybody.
Check us out on worldwidesportsradio.com, Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, YouTube, Periscope, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, smart speakers, and so much more. Don't forget to check out other great shows like the Sports Loudmouth. Don't forget to check out the Wise Guy and the Betting Show, and that's where I'm going to stand on those shows right now. Unless I'm missing any Speedy on the Weekend Crunch, 103.9 FM. What? Snowman in the morning. And Kenny's show, too, at 12 on Sundays. Do not forget that, Snow. Don't you worry, pal. Don't you worry. And by the way, did not know the Beef went to the game last night for the Ranger game. Therein lies I found it out this afternoon. There's the problem. Well, Eric, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Oh, God. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Speedy, have a good show this week with Errol and all of them on the Sports Loudmouth. Thank you so much to Tim Peel. Again, he was fantastic, amazing, and awesome. And we'll talk to you next week, everybody. Have a great weekend. So for Eric Bowe, for Speedy Petey, I'm Josh Silberg. Thanks for listening to Game On the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Go Rangers!
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.